got laid off and told I was expendable. My entire department fell apart without me. A few months ago, my company decided to do a round of restructuring. You know the vague corporate speak that usually means cutting costs and trimming people who are supposedly non-essential. I'd been with the company for several years, managing vendor relationships and handling all the project coordination for our department. It wasn't glamorous work, but it kept everything running smoothly. When they let me go, management tried to soften the blow by saying I was good, but not critical to operations. Translation: you do a lot, but we don't really understand what you do. I left quietly, took my severance, and wished them luck. Deep down, I suspected they were about to learn a hard lesson, but I didn't say a word. Within a month, the cracks started to show. I began hearing from old colleagues that vendors were confused about contracts. Nobody knew the correct points of contact, and project deadlines were slipping left and right. The big one came when a major contract renewal got delayed because no one understood how the internal systems and processes worked, the very ones I used to manage. Then came the phone calls. My former boss reached out, saying things like, "Hey, just a quick question, and can you remind me how we used to handle?" It started off casual, but I knew what was happening. They were floundering. I gave a polite but minimal response the first time, but after the second and third calls, I stopped answering. I wasn't about to do free consulting for the people who had just told me I wasn't critical. Meanwhile, one of our biggest vendors, the one I had worked with the most, reached out to me. They had seen the chaos firsthand and asked if I'd consider coming on board full-time to help manage multiple client accounts. Essentially, it was the same job I'd been doing before, but with better pay, more respect, and an organization that actually understood my value. I accepted. A few weeks later, I heard through the grapevine that my old company had lost 3 major contracts due to the confusion. Ironically, my new employer, that same vendor, is now one of their largest revenue sources. When my old boss called again, I simply said, "No thanks." It felt good knowing they finally realized just how critical I really was. Now for the comments. Common theme: managers don't know the extent of institutional history and knowledge that gets lost or destroyed with these restructuring. This: nobody documented anything. It was all institutional knowledge in my head. They thought I was replaceable until suddenly I wasn't. 100%. I was the last person at my last job with all the institutional knowledge, and the manager and her chief minion both thought they were so much smarter than me apparently, and that I wasn't needed, and my job wasn't so hard. Even though I was the only one who knew how 85% of everything was done, and it all crashed when I left because they just dumped it on my clueless colleagues who had other roles. Just one example of the minions' idiocy: I maintained all the historic files, which they were always nagging me to digitize, yet wouldn't give me the budget to hire a firm to do it. When I left, Minion hired random movers who just threw them into boxes and shipped them to colleagues at a second location in complete disarray, and they wound up having to hire someone to recreate the entire system. This hit different. I was the only one who knew how everything connected. They thought that didn't matter. Tell your old boss that you're a freelancer now and you charge $300 an hour. They will accept it. Many years ago, after I left one job, the manager, who was the reason I left, called me because the knowledge management system I built went down, and my replacement had no clue. And I told her no, and her response was that since it was something I built on company time, I was obligated to continue to support it. I just laughed and told her my consulting rates, and she hung up. She kept calling and texting demanding I fix it, so I just reached out to HR there and told them my next step was filing harassment charges. Never heard back again, LOL. Being built on company time means they're entitled to keep the system you built for them. Maintenance is the problem of the company since they own it. Yeah, I had to explain what work for hire meant. Next story. My boss stole my work, and I let him get roasted for it. So this happened a few months ago. I work in product for a mid-sized tech company, nothing glamorous, just your typical mix of dashboards, stand-ups, and people trying to look busy on Slack. I was leading a small internal project meant to fix a data mess that had been quietly draining thousands of dollars every month. Not exactly headline material, but it mattered. For weeks I stayed late cleaning up datasets, writing SQL queries, cross-checking vendor numbers, and building a reporting model so finance could finally see where the leaks were. By the end, the project actually worked. We stopped the bleeding, automated the process, and started saving money. It wasn't flashy, but it was solid work. The day before our quarterly all-hands, my manager, let's call him Steve, messages me asking if I could send over a quick summary of what I did. I figured he just wanted to review it before presenting the highlights. No problem, right? I put together a tight slide deck with screenshots, charts, and bullet points explaining how I tackled the issue and sent it his way. Fast forward to the next day. I'm sitting in the audience, coffee in hand, when Steve starts presenting. My stomach drops. He's literally showing my slides. Not inspired by, not adapted from. The exact same file. He didn't even bother to rename it. The file name still had my initials in it. And to top it off, he tells everyone, my team helped a bit. A bit? Bro, I am the team. I didn't say anything in the moment, partly out of shock, partly because I didn't want to look petty in front of the execs. But I filed it away. A few weeks later, our VP reached out, asking for some follow-up numbers from that same project. Steve was on vacation, so she came directly to me. I sent her the updated dashboard and, as casually as possible, mentioned, oh yeah, here's the model I built from that analysis I shared earlier. She paused and said, wait, you built that? You could almost hear the gears turning. Long story short, she wasn't thrilled when she realized Steve had taken all the credit. Next review cycle, when strategic contributions came up, guess who didn't get the glory this time? Not me, and definitely not him. Lesson learned, document everything, keep your receipts, and let management types like Steve hang themselves with their own PowerPoint. Everything I build, even code, I hide my name somewhere. Heck, I even have a disclaimer within everything I've built and done, even if it's hidden. That way, when someone says something, I can point out the proof of it. I'm not a dev or software engineer, but I make sure it's my work, my code, if I made something. Haha, that's actually smart. Kinda like digitally watermarking your own stuff. I wish I did that too, to be honest. My boss straight up lifted my doc, changed the title slide, and called it his new framework. Next time I'm sneaking my name somewhere subtle to LOL. If it's a PowerPoint or document, put your name and disclaimer in the corner of the pages as white text. That way it's not visible, but you know it's there, and he can't say anything if you point it out. Oh, I had one of those bosses. She left her questions in the comments on the slides and forgot to delete or hide them when presenting. Lol, that's hilarious. I swear some of them don't even try to hide it. Mine once literally left my initials on a slide he presented. As a manager, I make sure everyone's contribution is fully recognized. Though as a manager, he has the right to say his team built it, but it's poor form if he made out that he did it himself. Yeah, totally get that. I wouldn't have minded if he'd just said our team built it, but man straight up took credit like he'd been up all night doing it himself. Next story, they preached we're a family until someone actually needed help. For 3 years, every company meeting ended the same way. Remember, we're not just co-workers, we're family here. The CEO loved that line and pushed the family culture hard. Company picnics, birthday celebrations, the whole routine. Then my co-worker's house burned down. She lost everything. She had insurance, but it takes time to process, and she needed immediate help with temporary housing and basic necessities. She'd been with the company for 8 years, a stellar employee who never missed deadlines. She asked if the company could advance her next paycheck or provide a short-term loan. Not a handout, literally just her own money a week early. HR said it was against policy. The CEO, who talked endlessly about family, wouldn't even take a meeting. Some of us pooled money to help her out. We raised about $3,000 between 12 people. When the CEO heard about it, he sent a company-wide email praising our generous spirit and family values. He didn't contribute a dollar himself. 2 months later, the same CEO sent out an email about how we needed to go above and beyond during a busy period. He said, family steps up when it matters, and expected everyone to work weekends without overtime pay because that's what family does. The same co-worker who lost everything declined. She said she had plans, politely but firmly. She got written up for not being a team player and lacking commitment to company culture. She quit a week later. 3 others followed. In the exit interviews, all 4 mentioned the family hypocrisy. Management's takeaway? They needed to screen better for cultural fit during hiring. They're still using the family line in meetings, though. Funny how that works. Family is always code for we expect loyalty from you, but don't expect it back. The second they asked her to work weekends for free after refusing to help when her house burned down, that told you everything. Good for her and the others for getting out. That's true. Sometimes you find a rare gem of a boss. I worked for a guy who preached the family culture nonsense, but actually backed it up. We had an employee whose house burned down, and he lost his dogs in the fire. Not only did he advance his pay, but he gave him $5,000 and kept him on payroll for 2 months while he didn't work. It's always the small businesses that are struggling where the boss is still human. Family only matters when they need something from you. The moment you need actual support, suddenly it's against policy. Love how they didn't even bother changing their script after people quit, just decided they needed more brainwashed employees instead. CEOs like the family analogy because they're the father and therefore control everything. If everyone were friends or colleagues, it wouldn't have the same authoritarian connotation. You're a family, a slave family, and the CEO is the plantation owner. This is my manager. She always has someone in her sights, usually me, and has to find things they're doing wrong. She also expects everyone in the office to be dirt poor and unable to afford any of life's emergencies, like needing new tires or an unexpected expense, so they offer interest-free loans to be repaid out of our paychecks. And oh boy, they think they're being so kind with this. How about paying people more so they can actually afford to live? It was incredibly telling when our paychecks weren't properly deposited due to a glitch at the bank. We're usually paid Friday, but by Tuesday, still hadn't gotten paid. The owner bought us lunch and then was on the phone yelling at the bank, "I had to buy my employees lunch due to your error." They can't even afford to eat because they haven't been paid yet. And that told me all I needed to know about how they view us. There are a few of us with spouses who have very good jobs, and this pisses my manager off to no end. She seethes with jealousy and can barely hide it. About a year ago, she sent out a series of hateful emails saying we'd better shape up or go part-time and lose some of the benefits we might be enjoying, such as health insurance. So those of us with spouses who have better insurance said, fine, we'll go part-time. It blew up in her face, and all the quality employees ended up quitting. What's weird is that she's now surrounded by completely incompetent and lazy people, and it's like she prefers it that way. Last story. Told my manager I won't be everyone's tech support after hours. I work as a data analyst in a mid-sized company. Hybrid. My job is dashboards, tickets, the usual, not help desk. Since I'm fast with scripts, people ask me things now and then, which is fine. The issue started when my manager made a be helpful push and added me to a Teams chat called Quick Fix Crew without asking. The chat is basically every person who's ever had an Excel question with my name at the top. Last week, I was eating dinner with my girlfriend when my phone kept buzzing. 8 pings in 12 minutes. Can you fix my spreadsheet? Can you reset a VPN? Can you check a printer? A printer? Dude. I muted the chat and answered the next morning. My manager wrote to me privately, saying that our culture is to jump on stuff, that it takes a village. I said sure, during work hours and when it's my job. He said I was setting the wrong tone, that senior people should model service. Meanwhile, I was behind on an actual revenue report because I'd spent half a day unbricking Karen's monster workbook with 47 linked tabs named things like copy of final to final. I told him I'll be helpful when I can, but I'm not free overtime labor, and I won't give out my personal number anymore either. He had somehow shared it in the chat so people could reach me faster. I didn't approve that. Not cool. Friday night, 9:40 p.m., someone from sales I'd never met called me twice, then texted urgent because a pivot table broke before a Monday meeting. I replied, I'm off. Log a ticket. I'll pick it up Monday. Monday morning, I got called into a short meeting, manager plus HR, where they said a few folks feel I'm not a team player, and the word stubborn was used. I brought printouts of my job description and a list of 23 after-hours pings from the last 2 weeks, with timestamps and topics, including 3 about resetting home Wi-Fi. HR gave the corporate smile and said we should find balance. So I drafted a simple boundary note. I posted it in the chat. Kindly, clear hours, ticket first, no personal calls. Emergencies must go through the on-call help desk, which exists, by the way. People were salty. One person said I embarrassed them by making rules. My manager told me I killed momentum. I told him I'm happy to be helpful, but I won't be the free 24/7 IT guy just because I know VLOOKUP and my mic isn't broken. Now, half the team is being passive-aggressive, no good mornings, and my manager says my attitude needs work. Am I wrong for drawing a line and refusing after-hours tech support that isn't my job? Honestly, time to look for another job if possible, because your work environment has become toxic. The manager is a massive a-hole, and HR doesn't even have your back. No job is worth staying in a toxic environment like that. Time to move on and protect your peace. You need to make a call to your state labor board. They would love to hear this story. Unpaid work after hours is the kind of thing that makes them happy to file complaints and send companies notices about how they are violating labor laws and how much that will cost them. Beware, you may need a new job, but you'll go out with a bang. Even for salaried workers? In a lot of instances, yes, if the after-hours requirements are outside the scope of the original job. If I'm a salaried programmer, it would be unreasonable to be asked to stay late and clean up the sales office. I managed an IT team, help desk included, that thought doing favors for friends was part of the job. Walk-ins, no tickets, troubleshooting Excel for finance people, etc. This was a policy started by the prior manager. The team also said they needed more people. When I finally got them to stop the favors and record their work through tickets, status reports, etc., I finally had the metrics to show we were understaffed, according to all industry benchmarks. But I'll also say that when I asked them to record their work, they thought it was in prep for a RIF, so it took a few weeks to get them on board. Being a team player is never rewarded, except for the person who takes credit for lowering expenses. In a perfect world, you shouldn't have to work after hours. But right or wrong, alienating folks isn't good in the long term. Dust off your resume and find a job closer to your expectations. Meanwhile, pick the hill you're willing to see your position die on. I agree, OP should be looking for a new job, but they're the one being alienated here, not their coworkers. In general, if your job is putting this much unpaid work on your desk, it's a good time to start job hunting for a much more reasonable position.